Hi everyone, my name is CClausner. I'm going to share today on the How Boys Learn. And I don't know what date I'm going to give this on, but I just wanted to get this out there. And this is kind of my trial run. So just listen to this if you are absent or out that day. The number one thing that I think is important when you're teaching boys or you're teaching anybody in general, in my mind, and this comes from John Hattie's research, which we heard a lot about this week, but you must believe in your students' ability to learn. I feel that this is the number one component that has made me a great teacher here at St. Louis and at my former school. It means that you've taken the time to learn about your students. You've built those relationships. You can understand accurately where each learner is in their content, as well as in their social emotional development, as who they are as young men. And then the most important part is you're proactively using that knowledge to decide how to adapt your teaching. This includes being data-driven and data-informed, like Bridget talked to us about this week. It includes being able to use the resources, tools, outcomes, and your strategies with fidelity to understand exactly where our boys are at, where our young men are at, and then taking that data and making informed decisions. Knowing how to catch students up, knowing how to push advanced students, you have to have an accurate sense of where they are. And then you have to have this Ted Lasso quote. You have to believe in our kids. You have to believe in these young people. And if you wholeheartedly and inherently and intrinsically believe that, this is the kind of data that you can get. And so it's 1.29 and on that 0.4. So you can almost have beyond 3 years worth of growth. And just to show you how I think that has played out in my teaching career, I've had incredibly dramatic academic growth from students. I've also seen it more personally in their social and emotional development and who they are, because I think it's more about teaching the whole child than just their math skills. But you can see on the next slide, this was last year. I had a student start the year at a 5.7 grade equivalent, middle of year 7.1, and end of year greater than 10. So that's 4+ years of growth in the 8 months, 9 months I was with him. And so that's not to say that I'm perfect. It's not to say that, and this is just an example, obviously, to pat myself on the back. But when you have that firm belief in kids and you have that belief in our young men, they will achieve and they will rise to the high expectations you put on them. So I also have wanted to say that I am not an expert in single sex environments and boys learning. But I will tell you, I am a practitioner, and the things that I do in my classroom speak volumes, as well as the things I've done have proven results. And I've seen that the last 4 years, 3 years I've been in this school. The number one thing too is those relationships. When you know your kids inside and out, you know what they like, what they don't like. You also help them on their journey to find out who they are and be a guide for them in their own life self-discovery. You're going to understand their relationships at home, their relationships to school, their socioeconomic, their cultural. You're going to build those cross-cultural competencies that Kumwa Kaipo talked about the other day in his speech. When you have strong relationships, when you give kids a chance to learn about each other, themselves, you can be an amazing teacher, especially at an all-boys school. The other thing I do at the beginning of the year is I build a survey that asks my students, what do they care about? Who do they care about? Who are stakeholders? What do they love to learn about? What do they hate to learn about? What are their interests? And I know one thing that I revert back to is sport. Our students are so active and living athletic life that it aligns with who I am. So I can create content that connects to the relevancy of their interests. And this also we'll talk about in the safe space. The third R, and all of these are just so important. You have to have rigor. You have to push students at their proximal zone of development. That means that it's that Goldilocks zone. It's not too hard. It's not too easy, but it's just right. And I feel that once you get the rigor right and you've built relationships and you have relevancy, students can rise to the top. A big one at our school and in Hawaii, you must have culturally relevant and responsive pedagogy, and you must have culturally relevant and responsible teaching. The content, the curriculum, you are teaching the culture keepers of Hawaii, because the majority of our students identify as Native Hawaiian. So you have such a high kuleana and such a high responsibility on you. And I'll speak personally from my own set of truths, but someone not from here, it's on me to learn as much as I can, to read, to study, to engage with the host Hawaiian culture and the local culture, meet people, learn as much as I can, soak it up, because I can then connect to my students in that way and build resources and be there with them. And the second part of that is I'm not only learning for my students, but I'm learning from my students, because they are the culture keepers. They are the ones that are going to provide such an immense amount of strength and identity development, and they know who they are and they know what it's like to be a young person in Hawaii, as many of my colleagues do as well. But they are such wealth of knowledge. So that's a huge part of our teaching to boys here at St. Louis. Another thing that has been really great for me, I heard once or read once that you have as many minutes of undivided attention as many years you are. So a 30-year-old has 30 undivided minutes and a 10-year-old has 10 minutes. And so I teach in the middle school, 12 and 13-year-olds in the 7th grade. That means they have about 12 to 13 minutes of undivided attention. Therefore, we are moving in my classroom every 15 minutes. We're stretching, we're doing a game, we're switching seats. I told the 5th grade teacher, whose room is right below me, I'm sorry in advance, because we're very much moving the desk, we're playing games, we're doing jumping jacks, we're leading stretches, we're having competitions, we're throwing the ball around. And I think when you connect the mind-body awareness for young men, this just gives them a chance to really express truly who they are, because some of our students are incredible athletes and they express themselves in a physical way. If they're not incredible athletes, they understand that mind-body connection. Also, our boys love routine. They connect well. Our students are young men. I do try to call them young men just semantically, but sometimes I'll say boys because it's the boys learning. But structured time blocks, they love routine. They love knowing what they're going to do. They love having that on the board in a handout in a way that they can connect with it, because the unknown at that age is scary. The unknown creates that anxiety and that fear for the future. And so when you give them that structured high expectations, they know what's going to come, they know the structure of the day, even if it is novel and new, they know that they can then be in a safe space to make mistakes, to learn, to grow, to put themselves out there. And that's what we're trying to build in our classrooms. I think one of the things with student choice, which is the next block, is I like to roll it out over the course of the year. I feel like it is something, and I know there's a lot of research that shows it's great, but I like to roll it out maybe towards Q2, Q3, Q4, because I want them to have the baseline of my high expectations before I allow them to make the choices for themselves. But I think it's a great thing, whether it's how they do it, where they do it, who they're doing it with, any of those things when it comes to my classwork or homework is fair game. They have the choice, and I've seen great results because then they have that action within them to say, I made this choice. I'm going to do my project first, then I'm going to work 10 minutes on Freckle or online resource, and then I'm going to finish with my homework. And I think that's really powerful, but I like to roll it out over the course of the year. One thing as well that works well for our young gentlemen is the directions. When you are giving those MVP, very clear directions, you need to have them out loud, written down on the board in Google Classroom and on a handout, anywhere you can put them, because it gives all of our students a chance to catch up, because it gives them also a chance. It's equitable. It's allowing for them to have it in a different way so that they can approach the assignment in that way. So I always try to put it in 3, maybe 4 different places. So it also helps as a teacher, because then you can say, I made a YouTube video, it explains the whole thing. I've also just given you directions. And then when a student comes like, oh, what are we doing today? You say, hey, just watch this 2-minute YouTube video. It'll give you all the assignments. As well as, hey, here's a handout. It tells you exactly what to do. It helps cover you, and then you're not saying the same thing 25 times over, which I've done in the past. One thing that I'll attach to the bottom of this is I am a huge proponent. It's once a week minimum, probably in my classroom, but teaching through games, game-based instruction is hugely important in my teaching practice and my pedagogy. And then gamification, a little bit different, where you're taking something that's not a game, gamifying it, adding game-like elements. I have a 40-minute Schools of the Future talk on this that I'll link, but essentially it taps into something innately human. You can connect to Makahiki, you can connect to Hawaiian culture, you can, because humans everywhere around the world, we're playing games as a way to teach and as a way to learn and as a way to have fun, and a way to be physical, a way to have play, a way to be intellectual. Games tap into everything I think that we want in our young men, as well as the social, emotional, sportsmanship, respect, care. All those things are really great, and they can be vamped up through game-based and gamified lessons. I think that talks as well with healthy competition. You need to build a safe space. You need to have healthy, equitable norms in your classroom, because if you don't have those things, then the competition can get really heated and it can get oppressive. And so when you build a safe space for competition, where, and I say this to the students, and I don't know if I should, but I say, it takes a carpenter to build a house, any jackass can kick it down. Meaning when we build each other's up, then we can have that healthy competition. But if we're just going to put each other down, then I won't allow that competition, because it is unhealthy and it'll just lead to more issues in the classroom. Next one, intriguing and safe physical space. This to me looks like, again, a student survey at the beginning of the year that says, hey, what would you like to see on our walls? What do you like? What are some things that might up? So in my classroom, we have the college corner, we have sports corner, we have space, we have religion, we have social justice and thought leaders up on the walls. We also, then a hugely important part of my classroom is the Hawaii. We have Hawaiian culture. We have beautiful imagery that really makes you feel in a safe, intriguing place that you want to learn. You're always learning, and that kind of helps break down those four walls of our classroom, to say that, hey, learning is everywhere, anywhere, anytime. And it also gives students credence to fail, to feel safe, to feel reflected in the things on the wall, to feel like their interests are being honored and honed. And I think that's really important. Again, visual, tactile, and experiential. So reaching, and I know maybe the modalities isn't the best way to learn, or the best way to say we learn. But I know that I have so many students that love seeing the videos I make. They love the GIFs and the memes that I do. I'm also putting manipulatives in their hands that they're tactile learns. Every student has Velcro under his desk in case he gets stressed. Experiential is by far the best way I personally learn, by connecting lessons to experiences, being out in the field, bringing in guest speakers, getting my hands dirty. Those are my ways that I learn best. And I know our students and boys are especially aligned with that. One thing too, I'm not modeling it very well in this video, but teacher is not the sage on the stage, but a guide on the side. What I mean by that is you are not standing up at the front of the class lecturing for 50 or 75-minute blocks. That is bad teaching. It's how I was taught. It is very subpar teaching. It is useful in some scenarios, but it is not great teaching. And if you look at any of the research, it shows that, especially in a world where our students have 10, 15-second clips on TikTok and Instagram that captivate them, that make them laugh, that allow them to learn, that show them something new. You're competing with so much going on. Maybe I could have looked at the window, but these students have access to the internet and so much more on social media right in their pockets. So you are not the sage on the stage, but a guide on the side. And that is just a great way to think about the profession. Also, one thing that's great is project-based learning. You're going to find that they can encapsulate so much and be so creative when they have this big vision and big goal to work on. Peer motivated, at the middle school age, they are not thinking about, they're not thinking really about what mom and dad think of them, what auntie, uncle, what guardians, what grandparents, what teachers think of them. They are motivated by their peers. It's part of their neurological development at that age. So they are so in tune with how their peers and community think and feel. And so, especially when you have to give redirection, do that privately, and then praise publicly because they're so motivated by their peers. And then last one, I do a lot of goal setting for my students and goal achieving, as well as reflection exercises that allow them to think, hey, what is it that I really want? Not what my mom and dad say that I should want, not what society says I should want, but what do I really want? And that takes a lot of the self-work and self-discovery and self-awareness knowledge. The diagram on the right is instructional basic teacher decision making. Something like you make 20 decisions every minute and 20 seconds or something like that. For us and for all teachers, you have to have that cultural awareness. You need to understand the school culture. You need to understand your classroom culture. You need to understand each individual learner's culture, background, experiences, where they come into the classroom. You understand home culture, who is their stakeholders, who do they care about, and that's all that cultural awareness piece. You have to have high content knowledge. For me, I'm a 7th grade math teacher. There isn't a 7th grade math question that is going to stump me. I have deep and wide content knowledge in mathematics, I'd say up until 9th grade. But K to 8, I feel very strong in the content. I know the standards. I know them well. It's taken a lot of time to get there, but I know the structure of how things scaffold and build on each other. So having that content knowledge is just going to be such a powerful aspect. And also, that doesn't mean to say that I think I know everything and I'm okay, and actually build trust when a student does ask me a question. I say, hey, look, I actually don't know that answer, but I am so happy to get back to you. Thank you for asking. Because that builds the relationship and the people you have with your students. And there's like a lot of research that when you share things you don't know, people become closer. And then the pedagogical knowledge, this is those outcomes. These are those strategies. This is the planning. These are the tools. And knowing when is the right time to use those tools, when is the right time to use that strategy, mixing things up. I was really shocked when he said that teachers across the US only, I think he's maybe mentioned 3 or 4 different strategies, because I use over the course of the year, try to use maybe 50 or 60. Just building that pedagogical knowledge. And I mentioned this the other day to a teacher. I said, my first year, I was very average, but I built 5 great lessons. In my second year, I built 15 more great lessons. So now, and then I had 20, and then I built 20 the next year. And now after 7 years teaching here in Hawaii, I have 100 great lessons that I know are going to hit those, and they're utilizing different strategies. They hit the outcomes. And so that's one of the things that it makes teaching easier over time, but also it takes time to get that pedagogical knowledge. And lastly, self-awareness. The first real lesson I teach my students, and this is a little self-inflating, but I teach them about who I am. I teach them about why I'm a teacher, teach them about why I'm here in Hawaii, who motivates me, who are my people in my life, my grandmother, my parents, my siblings. I show them pictures of everyone in my family. I show them where I come from, my favorite sports teams. I give them a chance to see me not as the guy who just gives them math questions, but as a human, as someone who cares about them genuinely, and also as someone who can model what it's like to have self-awareness and also have self-love, which a lot of young men maybe never get to see that. So I think that's a crucial component. So that's a lot of talking again. And then these are 10 things. These are what great teachers do. And this is adapted from the Transcend 21st Century Skills, to get away from inequitable 19th century, 20th century, very oppressive learning styles, which, I mean, they're just not right. But even a colleague here was saying, oh yeah, the brothers used to smack us on the hands and do some of these things. So You have high expectations with unlimited opportunities, a whole child focus, rigorous learning, relevance to their lives, affirmation of self and others, which is also a big part of our classroom, social consciousness, understanding justice and equity. And these also align with the Marianist core values. Connection and community, customization, active self-direction, anywhere, anytime learning. I'm sorry, anytime, anywhere learning. And you can see the inequitable industrial era learnings, which some of us maybe perpetuate in our own classrooms, and then what we aim for in an equitable 21st century learning classroom. Feel free to reach out to me at any time. I know this was a lot. I know I speak fast, but if you have any questions on how to teach to our young men, how to be a role model for them, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to help because it's about the young men. So thank you for listening. Bye.